Remember to remember, 'cause I forgot what I forget. That's this very moment, let's make a memory.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Deborah from Let's Get Real About Mental Health, and today we are going to be doing the second part of our grief series. And with me today is my special guest, Mike Clark, and we're going to be having an honest, organic conversation about how to deal with grief and how important it is to realize that grief goes at each person's pace, that there's no set time limit or schedule for grief. You just have to get through your process. And we want to put that out there so that people can start realizing that it's okay to be grieving 5 years later. It's okay to be having that pain, but you just can't let it stunt your life. So, why don't you go first?
I'm absolutely honored to be asked to be part of this. Very interesting story here that me and Deborah were very different walks of life and very different struggles, and I think that's what's so important about this. Something I've definitely taken from you is just the idea that everybody goes through their process differently, and every circumstance is going to be different. Trying to grieve, there's no dictate for what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to feel. Mm-hmm. It's going to be different in every situation.
I think it's important also to remember that grief, there's a saying out there that grief doesn't end, it just becomes tolerable. Because they're gone and you're still living, and you have to find a way to live your life without them. And again, they also say that love is the price. For loving someone, you pay the price of grief. And I'll tell you what, right here, right now, I will pay that price gladly over and over again for the 22 years I was given with my friend, for the 92 years I was given with my grandmother. Well, not 92, because she's 92 when she died, and I was in my 40s, but you know what I'm saying. I think that that's important to remember. It's not a bad thing. It's something we need to really look at and understand, that I was given all this time to love them, and what a joyous gift that really was. And I think that helps us focus our grief a little better.
Again, we have completely different
belief
situations
systems. Yes,
and
yes.
just everything about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing to stress here, because your previous video you did a whole bunch on the systems of grieving and everything. So I thought, again, really grateful that you asked me to be part of this.
Well, thank you, sir.
That I just thought it would be, the only thing I can really offer at this point is emphasizing that point that you made, where it is absolutely a different operation for everyone, and there's no set standards for the amount of time it takes to go through something. There's no it's absolutely a very
Individualized process.
I'm sorry, I'm doing
all
a
good.
very
Big
poor
deal.
job.
Nah, you're doing fine, man. Don't worry about it.
Just how we became best of friends, and it was how you became part of my life when I definitely feeling very hopeless and very empty, and you came into my life
at the perfect time, didn't I?
And I hope that I have had a chance to reciprocate in some fashion.
You have.
But just how it all came together, that it was not anything planned.
Oh no, not at all.
I mean, shit, you didn't know. Yeah,
yeah.
Neighbor across the street, and no, you absolutely became just the closest, nicest friend. Somebody I could be myself around completely. It helped so tremendously, and again, that's not something that can be. So again, this is a really silly roundabout way of saying this, but basically there are options out there. We're social species,
Yes.
and
Yes.
no matter what, no matter how down you're feeling, no matter how empty you feel, if you're not feeling like you're part of a community or you don't have somebody to talk to, a simple Google search. There are so many resources out there, and it's something I would highly encourage everyone to do if they're struggling. That was how this all came
Oh,
about.
absolutely, it absolutely
It
was.
was like, by no means are we licensed therapists.
Not at all.
It was just an outreach for community. For this is a safe space.
Yes,
this is
exactly.
a place you can
Exactly.
feel comfortable and talk about your grievances. And yeah, I think that was a big part of it.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty much what this was all about. We're not claiming to have the answers. We're just trying to provide resources and
putting it out there to our community and anybody who watches this. I guess you're part of my community. That each situation of grief is different. What I went through when I lost my brother, when I lost my best friend, are totally different than the grief process that I went through when I got divorced or when I had a miscarriage. They're completely different, but you still have to feel them and go through them, and people have to understand that all of those things that I just mentioned you're going to grieve, and it's normal to grieve. So what I thought we could do today is we could really break down the stages and tell our experience with it, so that maybe somebody can listen and go, oh Jesus, I did exactly what she or he did. And maybe connect with us in some way, give them some place so they don't feel so alone. I'd like to start with how we met. As Mike said, we are of totally different backgrounds, totally different belief systems. I mean, we're pretty much polar opposites on a lot of things, but not everything. And he was struggling one day, and I'm not even gonna. Well, maybe I should tell him because it's kind of humorous. His door stuck, and he could not get the key to work on his door, and he was kind of pissed off. Y'all know how that goes. You're like trying, and you can't get it. Well, my husband saw him and said, "Hey, man, yeah, here's a beer or whatever he said," and said, "Let's just try it again." And then he got in, so it was all good. But 2 days later, he came to my door and said, "Hey, your husband helped me out. Here's a beer." And I looked at him and went, "Okay, whatever." But then, I never forget that face, right? But that night, and again, different belief systems. I'm not asking anybody to judge or tell me I'm right or wrong. I'm just telling you what I went through. That night, I dreamt of my best friend Shannon, and she had been gone 3 years at that point. I think no, not even. She had been gone like a little less than a year, and she told me that Mike, I brought Mike to you. So I firmly believe that Shannon brought Mike to me, or guided me to Mike, or guided Mike to me, whichever the case may be, because she knew that I was not going to do well without her. And it is the God honest truth. I do not do well without her. I do not do well without being able to pick up that phone and call her and say, "Hey, bitch, what's up?" Or what have you. So it is, that's what brought us together. But the big thing that I want to emphasize is, we said the time of grieving is the difference in grieving, because each process is different. And like my biggest loss recently is my best friend Shannon. Mike has lost his dad. Most recently was your dad, correct?
My grandma.
Your grandma, then your dad, or your dad, then your grandma?
My dad, then my grandma. And my uncle prior to that.
And then another uncle recently too, right?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
There's been a lot.
There's been a run on Mike's family. We have to be careful about that.
Well, what's interesting about that is, again, I wish that everything wasn't so polarized. That because again, so Deborah and I have. So I'm an atheist and she's a theist. That's not been a problem. We've had respectful conversations with each other, and
absolutely.
And we can both gain and learn from that. And again, same thing. Growing up experiences, our losses, just everything is so wildly different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a lot of what's brought us together.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that we're able to talk about things in a respectful manner and not, criticize or demonize or feel like somebody's
no.
insuperior.
Oh, yeah,
or
no.
It's been just a wonderful friendship. I think that's a big part of it, that it's been so difficult to connect with people, especially the whole COVID thing and what everybody's going through.
Oh.
It's been so challenging to be able to just connect as human beings because everybody's so scared. It's all out of fear. It's as opposed to, we have a disagreement on something, and that doesn't mean we hate each other or that we're...
No, we just disagree, But, given my temperament, it usually means that I'm yelling or something like that, but that's just how I am.
And likewise, and I think that's part of it, that, we're both so... we've both been through the ringer. And
we have.
Pissed off and frustrated, and and you can take these giant dichotomies. It doesn't stop us from loving each other and being friends.
No,
and that's
absolutely.
why it's so frustrating that it could be so easy to do that with other people, and it seems so challenging to do so.
Oh no, it absolutely
Sorry,
does.
I'm kind of
No, it's
jumping
okay.
all over
No,
the
it
place.
absolutely does. And the thing I think that I really want to compare is I lost my friend Shannon very suddenly. I was not expecting it. Her family wasn't expecting it. She died of complications. I believe it was deemed a pulmonary embolism after back surgery. So that was not supposed to happen. And I began to ask myself a lot of questions, during the whole stage of denial and bargaining and all that stuff. Whereas Mike lost his father to ALS. It was a longer drawn out process. But we learned in discussing with each other is that we both had similar feelings and similar processes in dealing with our grief. I don't think when we first found out it was probably the same thing, because I just lost my goddamn mind, I'm going to be honest. I stayed drunk for about 72 hours. And I'd drink till I passed out, then I'd wake up and I'd drink some more, and I just could not face the world without her. And I've actually battled with alcoholism since her death. And it's just something, because I started asking all these questions of myself. And what I found was the questions that I was asking post Shannon's death, Mike was actually asking before his dad died, because it was a longer drawn out process. And the number one question is why? Why the hell did this happen? And for me, it was like, why did this happen to Shannon? Why did she die so like this? She didn't deserve it. She deserved so much better. Whereas I think you asked that question too when your dad was alive. You were like, why my dad? Why did my dad get ALS?
But I would also say what was really okay. When you say a longer drawn out process, the thing is, there was a deadline. With Shannon, it wasn't known.
Yes.
And that is a really interesting concept. Talked a lot about that to a lot of people, and I can't imagine. Again, if when people ask you, would you want to know when you die and how you die, etc., I would say no, because if that was the case, you would be living every moment of every day for that. You would, this is going to happen at this time and in this way.
Okay.
I'm going to die in a plane crash. Well, don't go on that flight. You get into a whole bunch of fallacies and problems, but I'm just saying the idea of if you knew the moment and how you were going to die, would you want to? Because I wouldn't. Because I think that's the whole thing. Something that a tragedy that happens with Shannon, where it's completely unexpected, out of the blue, that sucks and it's horrible, or something that I know this is going to happen, just a matter of waiting it out.
Yeah.
It's in that sense. I hope that doesn't sound cynical or morbid or anything.
No, it doesn't.
But I think that's like a better way to go, where it's like you don't know, because why would you want to know? If you had that knowledge, you'd be living every moment
for that knowledge.
for that moment.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, that's
it's okay.
probably a really
that's
poor way of...
exactly what I was talking about, because that brings up the other part of what I was going to say is that Mike had to watch his dad suffer. And I know Mike, and I know how close he was to his dad, so I know that could not have been easy to watch him go from the lively man that he was during your childhood and then watch him deteriorate in front of you. I was spared of that. I didn't have to watch Shannon deteriorate. So there's arguments for both sides, but the problem is here. The problem is that they're both gone, you know, and we're both desperately trying to get on with our lives and be. No, go ahead. They were desperately trying to get through the grieving process, and you know, you know, I'm just trying to give you tools. Like I said, you know, you have to know that it's okay. I mean, me personally, and I don't know if you do this, but I still talk to my girl. I will have something, and I'm losing my freaking mind, and I'm like, okay, Deborah, focus. I'm like, what would Shannon tell you to do? Because that's what we were. We were each other's sounding boards. What would Shannon tell you to do? And I sit there and I'm like, oh my God. Oh, girl, what are you doing? Because like last week, I woke up one day and I decided, you know, I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, what have you done? No makeup, your hair's all natural color with all the freaking white, and I feel terrible. I felt terrible. And I just had this little...
silly.
I know, but I had this inner voice tell me, you know, and I believe it was Shannon, get off your ass. It's time. It's time. And I went and cut my hair. I dyed it. Obviously, those of you who have seen it, you notice it's a new do. And I came home after getting it all done, and I looked in the mirror. I'm like, oh, shit, the sassy bitch is back. This is the first time since she's been gone that I've actually felt like I might have some sense of normalcy.
Can I throw something really fast?
Yeah, of course.
I just thought that was really fascinating that, again, coming on totally different sides of the spectrum, that you said, you know, I don't know if Mike does this or not. I almost daily, but literally last night, Dad, I wish you were here.
Yeah.
I don't believe he can hear me. I don't believe he has a soul and that he's out there.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't stop the want.
It doesn't stop the comfort of.
Yeah.
I was standing there last night. I hope you can hear me. I really wish you could experience this with me. Oh my goodness, you deserve so much more, and So I do the same thing. You know,
and it's at some point I think I know it brings comfort to you to be able to stay connected, but at some point, and I finally just reached that point with Shannon, and it's not easy, y'all. I'm having conversations with myself. My God, woman, you should be grieving longer for her, and you know, but. Honestly, I've spoken with her daughter on a few occasions about it, and she knows and I know that I loved her, but I have got to get back to living. I can't stay in that space anymore because it's becoming counterproductive. And that's the big thing, is you have to realize at some point your grief is going to become counterproductive.
And you know that's what she would want you to do. That's
exactly.
a big part of it. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
When you're feeling so down and out about loss in general, the best thing you can do is, well, never mind. I'm not a therapist, but what I've learned, what I've garnered from all of my experiences, the very best thing you can do is to keep pushing on. Mm-hmm. Not only will you feel better, but there's so many resources out there to feel better. Mm-hmm. And there's people that do want you in their life. We are social species.
Yes.
This is so important.
Yes.
Absolutely maintain. Don't do what I've done a long time and end up in a home by yourself and just, okay, shut off to the world. I don't do anything, I can't make any mistakes. No, make mistakes. Get out there, be part, and you know, as long as you're not doing anything illegal or whatever, you're gonna make progress. So, you know, and it may take, it's a shit ton of mental gymnastics. It can take so much work. But by the time you finally find, like my neighbor Deborah, you finally find somebody that appreciates you and understands you, that can be completely different from you,
Yes.
but has this similar understanding of suffering, pain, and how to move forward. It's so important
It
just
is.
to
It is.
put yourself out there. You can't. Maybe we'll cut this part out.
I don't think so. And there's just so much to it. So, like, we're gonna also talk. We're gonna talk right now about relationship grief. Now, for those of you who know me, I have been married 3 times. The first 2 ended in divorce. The first one was, probably should have never happened, but it did, and there was abuse in the situation. So I did grieve it, but I didn't grieve it as much as I could have because I was relieved to get the hell out. I was scared and got the hell out. But my second marriage, absolutely, there was grief involved. And the difference is that I had to own up to my half of the problem in the marriage. I had to own that. I had to, for me to process the grief, I had to own the problems that I created. I had to apologize for them and let that other person know that, I did wrong, and I'm owning that I did wrong. And what you choose to do with it is your business. But for me, I'm apologizing so I can move on with my grief process. So how do you find that? I know you're struggling still a little bit with a relationship breakup.
I wouldn't say a little bit.
Well, that's your point. That's for you to say.
I try to look at it like when you say never mind, we can go back and look. I don't think you said 3 failed marriages, 2 failed, 2 divorces.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I try and look at it, that it's not a failure. There was this time spent and a lot of growth happened because of it.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's basically my only feedback on that, because whatever was happening, that when you say abusive, that part scares me, and that I can't have anything abusive.
Believe me, dude, scared the shit out of me too. So.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. That's no good. But as far as when people say failed marriages or anything like that, it's not really. It's not a failure. I spent this time. I learned this.
I grew.
And I grew, and now I'm in a better place because I learned from that.
I experienced it. Yes, absolutely. But how are you personally dealing with the grieving of it? I mean, my marriages that I grieved were a long time ago because I've been married to my current husband, or been together with my current husband for like 20 years. Mike's is a little bit newer, a little bit more raw. But I mean, I've seen you go from I can't say her name to getting upset and kicking shit to I can say her name and then get upset in about 20 minutes.
I'm having a pretty tough time with it, and I'm trying to do the same thing. And every day is a challenge because, absolutely, yesterday I was. Well, you visited. We had fun. We had a lot of fun, and I felt a lot better. Like, okay, this is manageable. This is something I can deal with. Today was not the same.
No.
I felt pretty sick to my stomach all day, and it's just again coming back to everybody deals with grieving at a different speed, a different way. Shoot, if there's advice to give, it would be just that. Continue looking for support.
Yeah.
Me and Deborah, most unlikely friendship to ever happen.
Yeah, but we're good.
And it's so beneficial. It's so helpful. And there is help out there. There are people that care. There are people that love you. There's so much out there.
Absolutely.
You just have to suck it up for that very brief moment and just do a goddamn Google search.
Yeah. And find something.
There is community. There is love and kindness. And I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, we're here. This is the point of doing our podcast, our channel today, is that we wanted people to see like the human side of grieving. It's really easy for me to read off this, that, and the other, and this is the stage, and this is how you do it. But for you to actually see the human side of it, whereas like we we're putting a name on it. We're showing you each step of grief and how we struggled with it. And, you know, I just, I think that that's what's important today, is that we realize individuality in grief, and we realize that, you know, it's going to happen. Everyone's different.
Again,
Everyone's so different. And, you know, like, again, I'm going to use Mike's relationship. I'm sure he's going to smack me after this is over. But
I'm very violent and abusive. You know me.
I saw him today. He's set up so generous to use his camera and his tripod and everything like that for this taping, and that was it was very generous of him. But I watched him, I was setting it up, and you could almost see it kind of triggered him a little bit to remember stuff that happened in the past with it. And that's actually a really big step for him, and a step for anybody who's grieving. If you can use something, again, while you're grieving, that you have a memory tied to, it is very difficult, but once you do it, it starts to get a little bit easier, and you start to move yourself along in the grief process.
You know what's foundational about that is that I didn't even think about it. Now I'm so locked in this moment, and I didn't even think about it. After I made my silly comment, that is absolutely correct. Yeah, lost what is probably my only chance to have a child, and very, very difficult.
Yeah, it is very difficult especially when children.
And I didn't even think about it. I just stood here and I was like, "Where's she going with this tripod thing?" I see. No,
I watched it. I watched your whole body language change, and then it's shifted back again. And I think that's normal. It's acceptable. It's not harming him in any way to go through these things. It's actually helping him. I'm sure that he hates it, because I would hate it. The pain you have to feel when you're doing that. But, you know, and the other thing I want to focus on something that we both experienced a loss with, was his grandmother and my grandmother both died of complications of dementias or Alzheimer's. And that is a long, drawn-out process. And unfortunately, Mike had to experience that also with his dad. But he did what I recommend everybody do, and what I do. Just so you know, a little background, I worked with memory care. I ran a memory care unit.
I'll spell this again.
Good God, no, that'd be number 3. I worked in a memory care unit, and I saw this over and over and over again, and families getting frustrated and not understanding why people aren't remembering. I'm sure with your dad, you had some issues with that, because ALS not only affects the entire body, but how frustrated your dad must have felt, because his body is betraying him, but his mind was sharp as fuck.
Right.
You know?
That's absolutely true. There's and in fact, I can say yes, the mind going. When at the very end, I think I've shared this with you before, that was one of the most special moments that, as morbid and dark as it was one of the most special moments that he was asking for morphine. He knew he was done. The last night that he was alive, and I'm standing there with all my family and the caregivers, and he keeps mouthing, you know, like he was saying morphine, and nobody was catching on that, and I just said, he just wants morphine, that's all. And him looking at me and trying his hardest to do a wink at me and a shaking of the head. Like he knew he was, and I remember kissing him on the forehead and saying, "Dad, it's 3:30 in the morning, I'm gonna drive back and go to sleep, and I will be here in the morning, and I'm going to check on you." And I got the call that he was gone at 6 in the morning. And that was a really rough drive, I'll just say that.
I can't believe it was. I know, but I mean, that's something that you hang on to, because I agree with you. It's a special moment. I agree that it is a moment you connected with your dad, and you as his son were able to give him what he needed in that time. He needed morphine, okay? Whether pain, done, okay, the man was done. He wanted morphine, and as your son, you were able to take care of your dad one last time. And that's an amazing thing.
Exactly what my mom said. That was what was so interesting, that she felt so guilty for when my uncle died right before him, just saying, you know, morphine, and she gave him morphine, and then he died moments later,
Oh.
and she felt so guilty, and it was like, no,
No,
really, he
no.
understood. That was I've tried to reiterate that, but yeah, it's very dark, morbid stuff. But
I actually don't think it is. I think that it's a reality that we have to deal with when we have aging parents and grandparents.
good point.
Is that, hospice care is a real thing, and it's something that that could be a whole nother topic of conversation for another show, because hospice care is, in my opinion, the most merciful thing you can do for someone.
Yeah.
And let them go out on a feeling good and not struggling and no pain and feeling, I know for a fact that it hurts to die, and I think that that's another thing that hospice care handles, that it takes away that pain. So, but go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, could I throw in one more
Yeah.
thing that I'm thinking about, which is I would advocate for nobody starting at a conclusion, thinking what you've mentioned to me many times, and what I kind of piggybacking on what I was just saying, the idea of this happened for this reason.
Yes.
And you could even attribute that to people that are alive in your life, that maybe you've lost a relationship, maybe you don't start with a conclusion and then try and fill in the blanks to get there.
Yeah.
Creating a false narrative, projection. Nobody can read anybody's mind, and we don't know exactly what's going on. I'm sorry, I'm doing a really bad job.
I get where you're going.
Poor job.
I think what you're getting at is that, communication is the key. You can't make up scenarios in your mind, which I do all the time, until you talk to the person you're feeling like. Until you talk to the person or have a full conversation with them. You don't know. You don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what they're feeling. They don't know what you're feeling. So you actually have to be honest with the people in your life about what's going on with you.
That's why, and tying it into the grieving process.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I was getting at. Where don't have a conclusion. It came out this way, and therefore now I'm going to fill in all the blanks, and here's the reasons for that.
Yeah. And that's a tendency that people who are grieving have, because you want to make sense, and it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You want to make sense of the situation, I want to make sense of why my girl's dead. At 50, she was dead. 51, I'm sorry. I want to make sense of that. Well, I can't. Okay? I can't make sense of it because I know what happened. I talked to her daughter extensively with it. I don't know why that happened. And there's nothing I can do about it.
And us as humans, we hate not knowing, and so we tend to fill in the blanks, and it's not necessarily
healthy.
Not necessarily productive when you're trying to go through grief, when you're trying to. That's the biggest thing I learned. Like I said, God damn it, the whole time with you, how incredible, what a wonderful friend you've been, and oh my goodness, every little thing, everything that you have. I'll say, hey, this really hurts and this sucks, and you will say, it's one step forward. You did it.
Yes.
I don't want to hear that. It's like, no, God damn it, no.
I don't want to hear it.
I'm pissed off, and this doesn't make any sense.
Leave me alone, Deborah.
And yet, every time I think about it rationally, I'm like, that was one more thing. That was...
Absolutely. But, it's, again, that goes back to what we've been saying this whole time, is that grief is different for every person and back to piggybacking on what Mike was just saying, it's sometimes in the grief process, it's almost easier in that moment, in that time, to make up a scenario, give yourself a narrative. Well, this happened and that happened and this must have happened. And it might get you through that stage of grief or allow you to move forward. But eventually, you're going to have to set the narrative right with yourself. And that will, in my opinion, that prolongs the grief process. But that's just my opinion. If it works for you to get you through the most darkest days, then do it. Do it. And work it out in the end when you're stronger. Because the point is we have to get through our grief. We have to feel our grief, and that's the big thing. You have to feel your grief, and it's so many different stages and how you feel it, and
it sucks.
It sucks. It sucks really bad. And the thing also with grief is like, it doesn't follow a schedule. You know, I could be in stage 1, which is denial, and then the next day I'm bargaining, but then I'm back into denial the day after. So it's so back and forth, you know, kind of like the ocean comes in, goes out. That's grief. That's what grief is. And that's why you can't put a time frame on it, and you cannot expect people to be, well, on schedule, let's go, you know. It doesn't work that way. I might have one good day, and then I might have 6 bad ones. Or I might have 6 good days and 1 bad one. You just have to allow your mind and your body and your heart to feel all of that and deal with it. And you have to allow it, because if you don't allow it, y'all, it's going to be one ugly explosion down the road.
Like Uncle Corey said, whereas, yeah, I thought it was so good, where, you know, again, you're allowed to feel everything you feel. You're supposed to feel everything you feel. You're right to feel everything you feel. How you react to that is a different story. And
Yes.
I have definitely reacted poorly in the past, but you're absolutely allowed to, everything you feel, if you feel that you need to sit in bed an entire day,
Do it.
covered with a blanket because you're just so enraged or so hurt or so, that's your body responding to how you need to feel, and you
Yeah.
need to let that run its course. Don't, if you try and stop that, if you try and, you know, counter that by, well, I'll just go into work and pretend this isn't a thing,
Yeah.
and then it comes out, and then it freak out in anger,
Yeah.
or treat a family member or a close friend poorly. No. When that happens, call in sick and
And feel what you're feeling. Yeah.
feel what you're feeling.
You know, and
Gotta run through the process.
you absolutely do. And, you know, when we say that, we're encouraging you to feel what you feel. And the whole thing is, though, you have to know, you have to have somebody by your side. And if you start feeling that bad all the time, somebody's going to be there for you to say, hey, okay, it's been 7 days, you're still in bed, you probably need to get up. Like my husband did for me at the end of the 3rd day. I woke up to Papa Top again at like 7 a.m. and he's like, honey, come on, you need to stop. You need to stop and feel your feelings. You cannot stay drunk for the next 4 or 5 years because she's gone. That was entirely my plan. I just decided I was going to become a massive alcoholic and just drink myself to death because I could not face life without Shannon.
It's really,
Yeah, and great, right? It is
Counterintuitive.
counterintuitive. But you know, that's something that I did, and that was how my grief really was like sucking me in, because I had gone so far as to leave letters for 4 or 5 important people in my life in case I did not recover from Shannon's death. I mean, that's
when you were in that moment, did you think I'm gonna get through this, or were you convinced that I am literally going to drink myself to death?
I was convinced I was going to drink myself to death because
See, I
I
was
could
too,
not,
and
absolutely
yeah.
could not face reality at that point. But it became dangerous. And when it became dangerous, my husband's like, that's enough. You felt this feeling. What you're doing now is burying the feelings under alcohol and trying to just say, oh, I'm feeling it, I'm grieving. No, what I was doing, I was burying, I was being counterintuitive, I was like hurting myself. And that's never an answer. You have to have a line where you say, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to feel my feelings, but at some point it becomes self-harming or stuffing.
But I would definitely be a hypocrite if I didn't acknowledge the fact that that is what I do a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that I would encourage people not to do if
Yes,
you're
absolutely.
capable of not doing it.
Absolutely.
You cut the dopamine out of your system. So when you do things like drink heavily or smoke pot or whatever, then when those receptors are woken back up or whatever, I'm not a...
I understand what you're saying. I get it.
Then it's going to be trouble. And I've done that many times, and it really does help for the but I have pancreatitis as a result of it, and I probably won't be alive for more than another few years. So just want to make that clear that, again, there are more massive repercussions. And if you're very depressed and you think, oh well, shit, I don't want to be alive for more than another few years, yes you do.
Yeah.
Just trust me, you do.
There's somebody like me, who's going to be balled up on the floor in grief because you're gone. Your presence in the universe is going to be felt. You may not think so at that moment in time, and I understand those feelings, but I guarantee you, grief is all-consuming. It will knock you flat on your ass, and it will help you get up. It will keep you down as long as it can. And at some point, you really do have to reach out and say, I need help. And those help can be a friend, a family member. And if you don't have a supportive friend system or a supportive family system, number one, get some supportive friends and family members. Number two,
number one, I would say, again, a simple Google search.
Exactly, that was my number two.
If you type in on Google, support in my community.
Yes.
No matter
yes.
where you live, at least in the United States is all I can speak for, there are so many resources. So please reach out to, just start there if you.
Yeah. You can find a grief group. You can find specific grief groups. They have some, like I've said in previous episodes, I have a couple therapists and I belong to a couple groups because I have a lot of complicated issues going on. But specifically for the grief that I'm dealing with Shannon is that I have a group of middle-aged women who are going through the exact same thing that I am because they lost someone who was their other half, and not in a marriage sense, in a friendship sense. And it is so hard to carry on afterwards. And I have grief and I have guilty feelings because I didn't keep as much in contact with her as I should have the last couple of years. And that's something I'm dealing with, and I always hear her little voice, like I said, saying, all right, dipshit, whatever, get on with your life. Okay. So, it just, like Mike said, you have to, when you need the support, you have to reach out for it.
My friend Derek that died in a car accident back in 2016, there was one of those moments where he was at my house the night before he died in a car accident, and he was really drunk, and I felt I was kind of a jerk. I was just like, okay, yeah, you're doing the. Cherish every moment.
Yes.
I've always wanted to. I feel sick to my stomach that I can't go back and give him a big hug because that's clearly what he needed. And he was just, Mike, I love you so much, and you're such a great friend. And I was just at the time thinking, yeah, you're drunk. No, he needed somebody that just to give him a hug, and that stuff's so important. Mm-hmm. Just. Physical contact and those moments mean so much.
They may not seem like it at the time,
right?
But that's the whole reason that you live. In my opinion, and I've taken me a while to get this way, but in my opinion, you got to live like there's no tomorrow because there might not be a tomorrow for someone. And if you live that way, then you're not going to have regrets. And that's actually a pretty good segue into discussing. What both our grandparents, our grandmothers, died of dementia or Alzheimer related stuff, and Mike and I have spent many afternoons talking, or evenings, or maybe even wee morning hours, talking about that, talking about how we dealt with that, and that's a special kind of pain when you're on the other end of it. My grandmother didn't have pain, but the first time she forgot me, it about broke my heart, and I was like, it's your granddaughter Deborah. She's like, I don't have a granddaughter Deborah. I said, yeah, it's Debbie Sue. She's like, oh, well, how are you talking to me? You were just born a little while ago. And I had to learn to live in the moment with her. I don't even argue with her, and that was something that you don't argue with them because their time frame is so different than our time frame, and she was awesome. Like one minute she would tell me, I'd call her and I'd say, it's your granddaughter Debbie. And she'd go, well, of course it is. What do you think I am, an idiot? All right. Well, that day I didn't need to say it, but you never know with something like that. Is that the experience that you have with your grandma as well?
Yeah, I'm disappointed I didn't get to spend more time, but yeah, a lot of special moments, and very much like what you're saying. It was, I felt very comforted in the sense that she didn't know the difference, but it was very sad because, yeah, she thought for a moment that I was like my mom's husband, and my the dementia thing really was kicking in. The relationship I had with her. As opposed to, like how am I connected to the family or.
Yes. You know, I found that very interesting with my grandparents too, especially, well, my grandma. She, like, at some point in time, I turned into not her granddaughter, but I turned into the Deborah who calls her every day. And God, you know, God bless some of my relatives, because my grandma would call them 15, 16 times a day and not remember that she had called them. So I know that there's a little bit of guilt there for them, because they would stop picking up the phone. For your own sanity, you have to stop, because she would relay the same stories over and over again. And, you know, I got caught a couple times too, and I did. I had to stop the phone call. I had to stop answering because it was just too much for me. And, but then you have those opportunities where, like, she called me and told me that my dad took away her scotch. And I said, what? She goes, yes, your dad took my scotch away, and I want my scotch, and I want a drink. You better call him and tell him to get it over here. Bring it to me. Well, my grandma forgot that I live in California and she lives in Montana. So it was going to be a hell of a drive for that scotch. So I called my dad up. I said, dude, did you take away grandma's scotch? He's like, yeah, I don't think she should be drinking. Well, why the hell not, Dad? She's dying. Let her fucking drink. You know what I'm saying? And that was my attitude. Whereas my dad's like, no, we have to do everything we can to slow down my mom's death and da-da-da-da-da. And for that was a hard interaction for us, and because we were at such different stages of the acceptance of what was going to happen to her. I personally was like, let the woman drink scotch every damn day, every hour, whatever. Dementia and Alzheimer's are not reversible. There is no cure. So why would you stop them from doing any of that?
Generational stuff.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah, like my.
Finally, I even up the score.
There we go. Yeah, like my grandma, I remember my mom saying like, well, would you like trying some edibles? Would you like to take a hit off this? And it just being so foreign, it was like, oh, this is a drug. This is so different.
Oh, it's bad. No, yes, exactly. And it is a generational thing. I agree 100%. But, you know, I was blessed in the fact that my grandma and grandpa were not, they were not the usual grandma and grandpa. I had a great relationship with my grandma and grandpa. I really did. And I always felt like I was such an advocate for her. But, you know, sometimes being an advocate for them when they're in that disease process is hard, because you have to remember there are other people caring for them on a daily, because I was not caring for her on a daily basis. Like I said, I live thousands of miles away. But it was hard for my brother, who she lived with until she died.
Well,
so.
What was it like when you were visiting? When you, if it was infrequent, what was it like when you were visiting?
She would call me my cousin's name a lot. My cousin Stacy. She would call me that because Stacy always lives in and still lives in Montana, and my grandma would see her a lot. She wouldn't see me as much. I was only there during the summers, so it was a little rough. But then, like, my grandma's filter fell off. I don't know about your grandma, but my grandma's filter fell off. When it went away, went down the toilet, never to be heard from again, because she would say some seriously inappropriate stuff, and you just look at her like, wow, grandma.
Same experience.
You know? Yeah,
Same experience, yep.
She commented on how chesty I was. I never thought you'd be so chesty. Don't those things hurt you? I love you, Grandma. Thank you. You know, I don't want to have that conversation with my grandma, but you know, you could.
I won't say things because.
But you know, it's exactly right. Their filter goes away. Yes.
Fell off. Absolutely. That's a really
And I think that's important that you realize that in that situation. Like again, with our grieving process, that with Alzheimer's and dementia, we're definitely grieving while they're still alive because they're going away slowly but surely. And we're definitely grieving that, but you have to find, when you're able to do it, you have to find the ability to embrace the good times that you had. And, you know, I think personally, even though it makes me sad afterwards, I think that sharing stories about the loved one I'm grieving and getting to share that with family members and friends and laugh about the times I had really helped my grief process.
Absolutely.
I really do. And you found the same thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, being able to talk about things, again, we're social species.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
It helps so tremendously just being able to, that's why I say people that are grieving, that are having a tough time, you gotta get out. You gotta interact with other people because it makes a world of difference.
It really does. There's a certain a degree of anonymity, and you don't have to share your life story. You don't have to tell them everything going on with your life. You just share what's going on with your grief process, and that will allow you to grieve, but still maintain a certain degree of privacy. And I know how important that is to you, and it's important to me too. I just don't, you know, I don't want the world knowing what's going on. That's kind of an oxymoron since I'm doing a YouTube channel. But anyway, I don't. There's certain things that my people who listen to this channel, they don't need to know about my life. And it's my life, and I have issues in it, and there are reasons I have issues, but you know.
This is kind of like a diary. That's the thing. It's like, if nothing else, document your day-to-day.
Yes.
People care. People care about what's going on in your life. And yeah, I'm sorry, by the way,
No.
Deborah, I had to mention.
Yes. Oh. So, what Mike's motioning to is all the artwork and stuff behind us is actually my art. I have taken this up and actually to help me through my grief process. And I've done a lot of really dark stuff as well, but that is not up here. That was to help me through my PTSD.
It's all really
but
beautiful.
it's all this stuff is for sale if you're interested. Hit me up at DebbieSue70@gmail.com. And we'll discuss a price. I'm pretty reasonable. So, but yeah, that's another thing that, in fact, that's a great segue into the next thing we're going to talk about is finding a positive outlet for your grief. You have to find a positive outlet. As much as I enjoy the El Blanco Talons that I'm drinking right now, points for anybody who figures out what I'm drinking. It is, that is not the most positive.
That was really good. That was really good.
It's not the most positive way to deal with your grief or even your mental health issues or anything. It's not the most positive way to do it. I honestly think that Mike and I do it to allow us to relax because we have a whole lot of walls built up and we have a whole lot of things that we protect ourselves or protect the world from us, whatever the case may be. And in order to properly heal and be with somebody who I can tell him how I'm feeling that day and what is from it. He knows my past. And, you know, I have to say that there have been times when I've told him stuff and I needed to tell him and he just sat and listened, but I watched him cry while he listened. And I was like, what? It's not that bad. He's like, no, Deborah, that's bad. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I didn't realize how bad it was. But I would not have been able to share that with him had I not been drinking. Because, you know, your inhibition's lower and everything like that. But this is not the most positive outlet. I don't suggest that people do this. It's something that we do for a coping mechanism that we both know we need to slow down on. But you gotta find some way to let it out. If it's writing in a journal, taking pictures, painting art, doing sculptures, whatever, you have to find a way to let go of all that shit. Because if you don't, and you're still processing, you're like, okay, I'm going to process, and okay, I'm accepting it. And right now I'm kind of in the acceptance stage. I'm actually firmly in the acceptance stage of Shannon's death. And I can't imagine if I had not let out all those emotions that I was feeling onto the canvas. I can't imagine what I'd be doing right now. I think I would implode. I really do. I think that the emotions are just too much.
Can you imagine if I
if you would.
how long it was since, other than doing I record music. I'm a music producer, and I wouldn't have done any of that stuff on the mixer. I wouldn't have. I got through so much stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
Oh, thank you. Mike and I started our friendship about 3 years ago, somewhere around there, when I moved in here. So I think it's about 3 years. And I found out he was a record producer. And I said, listen, Mike, I don't sing well. I don't know anything about music, but I have a song that I need to record. And because I can't, sorry,
And
I
you
can't
told
get the
me
musicians
through the
out.
whole process,
Yeah.
I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't do this.
And I did.
And you did it.
I did. And it did. It began the healing process for me, for my grief, for my best friend. And what we recorded a rap I wrote. Oh, yes. Hold on, I'm going to pause for the laughter. A 52-year-old white woman rapping. Yes, I understand.
Beavertown.
Oregon. What you have to understand is that Shannon liked that kind of music, so that's why I found it fitting to do that. And you know, he helped me. He helped me do it. He never questioned it, never motivation, anything, because he knew. I think he knew by looking at me that this had to come out because I was falling apart inside. And that outlet of making that song allowed me to begin healing. It really did.
Yeah, I think we recorded that over the course of 2 or 3 days. And there was that's what's ironic about it is it's so beautiful and sweet and just again organic, and there was so much crying.
Oh my God!
So much
Yes,
pain
yes,
that went on throughout that whole process. That I think if it wasn't for that process, who knows? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Probably be in the same position, but going through that process, you really did accomplish something amazing there.
Yeah, and well, because it had to happen. I felt like now looking on the other side of it, it absolutely had to happen because I was self-destructing, and that's not good. You know, I was drinking entirely too much, and Shannon's daughter Chelsea, she even called me and said, "Hey, you need to cut down on the drinking, Deb."
Well, and again, I was doing the same thing for
absolutely
entirely different reasons.
Yes, but you were still grieving.
We both meshed in this particular.
Absolutely. And then, you know, in turn, we've started recording songs together. And again, I'm not saying anything because I don't think I'm any good, but he thinks I am. So I'm just going to let him speak for himself. But we were able to clear stuff off of your mixer that related back to your bad relationship.
Going back years, absolutely. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, yeah. Just helped me get through so much grievance. Absolutely.
And that's what I'm trying to focus on, you know, making sure that everybody understands that at some point you have to have an outlet.
Well, you could contact us, first of all.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
that's the whole
And
point of this, just to have a community and an open conversation where being accepted and comfortable, knowing that there's people that care about you, and that there's. But if you can't stand us, there are
find someone.
There are so many opportunities out there.
Well, you know, like maybe we don't know you personally, but we know the struggle and we know the pain. And I'll tell you right now, I can guarantee you hit me up, you send me a message, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to take the time to talk to you, because if I can help one person just grieve a little less or struggle a little less,
and
what's going on? Yeah.
Isn't that what's wanted on the reciprocating end?
Absolutely.
That's the thing.
Absolutely.
If just a little less pain, and
that's the whole goal. Is just a little less pain.
We're here for you. Want to just a little less pain in the world. That's really all it's about.
And those of us who have mental health issues and challenges, sometimes it's harder. It's harder for us. That's just a real fact. It is harder for us because you never know. There were days, you know, when I was having those really dark thoughts, I didn't know if it was the depression or the grief, or it was depression and the grief, or what it was. But you know, I understand. Mike understands. We understand that pain because we both have issues like that. And I've been very open and honest about my issues. And, you know, there's no reason why you should feel uncomfortable about dropping me a message. Drop me a line. I will be happy to chat with you about it. This isn't going to go live. We're going to be doing some editing because, you know, like blah, blah, blah. But yeah, please hit me up on my YouTube channel.
You can be atheist or theist. You can be Democrat, Republican. You can be anything.
Straight or gay. We don't care.
We don't care.
Yeah.
Just here for...
We're here for support. And that's the whole point of it. We just want to make sure that everybody knows that there is somebody out there who can care. Somebody out there who will listen to you. And that is us. We will do that. And, you know, we can help one person. Like I said, it will be so much better. Make the world a little bit of a better place. And that's the whole thing is, with everything going on with the social climate and stuff like that, you know, we both actually agree that we have to start with our corner of the world. And our corner of the world and our street, because we literally live across the street from each other, we're making progress. We're making the world better. And just by simply doing something as easy as walking out my door, instead of just ignoring my neighbor. Hey neighbor, how you doing? You know, I see somebody pulling out of our cul-de-sac and I'm, hey, how you doing? I don't know if that even affects them or they think I'm a freaking weirdo. I really don't care. What it does for me is that I'm making the efforts to make the world a little bit of a better place. And that's what we're all about. Absolutely.
Welcoming, a little more kind. It's
absolutely what we're about. And hopefully, fingers crossed, y'all, we're going to get our acts together and we're going to put together our podcast together, which, oh boy, is that going to be fun. And it's called Translate Happiness. And hopefully we will be focusing on the things that just make people happy. I'd also like to give a little bit of a plug to a podcast that my co-host here has appeared on, is going to appear on again.
Oh boy.
What is that called? What's Neil's podcast?
Neil, the 604 Atheist, kind enough to have me on. Yeah.
I think if you are ready to just have some thought-provoking conversations and just give you something to think about, maybe you need to get out of your situation a little bit. You need to be away from emotions for a little bit, and I can understand that. I want you to check out his podcast because there's some seriously smart people on there discussing real world issues. They may think differently and believe differently than you do, but I enjoy the podcast simply because they bring a new element to my life.
But just skip over...
Ha! Yeah. No, we're not skipping over anything. We're not skipping over anything. All right. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Love you, and just kind of. I believe I texted you last night. What was it? Just so grateful that we crossed paths in life, and my dear friend. Completely
Absolutely.
different walks of life, completely different experiences.
Yeah.
And yet there is a shared commonality here, just love and kindness.
Well, you know, like you said, he's an atheist, I'm a theist, but we're both humanists. And that's what's important, is we believe in the kindness of the human species and being better to each other. Because the only way that you can change the world is by example. And that's what we do.
And I'm right and she's wrong.
He's full of crap. I'm right. He's wrong. All right, y'all. I will see you next week. Where we are going to be talking about, super fun stuff, self-sabotage. And you're going to find that this actually fits into the grief process as well, and I'll try to tie it all together. We're going to talk about self-sabotage. Your girl Deborah is an absolute 100% guilty of this. I do, and so is Mike, actually. We looked at the sites, we looked at the signs and symptoms and everything. We're like, oh shit, we do this a lot. So, that's what we're going to be talking about, the signs and symptoms and how to address that and really start making your life a little bit better for yourself. Because you know what? You got to remember, you guys, we deserve a better life. We deserve to be good to ourselves. And it's something that only you can start the change with. You're the only person who can make your life better. And with that thought, as always, be kind to yourself, and I will see you next week. Have a good night.
Thanks, Deborah.
You're welcome, sir. That was fun. I had a good time.
Remember to remember.